We're the Legends of the Stoop. We're here to advocate, educate, and inspire society. Coming at you live from the South Side. Welcome back to Legends of the Stoop. I am your host, Mike Bernice. To all of our athletic and artistic listeners out there, we have some good news. Our guest from episode 26 on your Stoop Kids 412, Addison Domingo, the owner of Follow the Trees, Ride the Vibe, is offering us discounts on all CBD products. We got the oil, we got the cream. I use them both. Very, very great products. So please use the promo code Stoop Legends at checkout to receive your discounts today. My guest stopping by the Stoop today is none other than my brother, Justin Heinauer. How you doing, man?
What's up, brother?
Nice to see you, man. Thank you for coming down, man. How's life going?
It's good, man.
Yeah.
Life's a blessing.
Yeah.
Just trying to navigate these waters that we're all going through and coming out on top, you know?
Yeah.
So doing whatever I can to advance not only my personal life, but, you know, try to build up the people around me, which seems like it's in line with your vision.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, let's first I want you to introduce yourself to the audience. Just like kind of tell them a little bit about yourself, a little backstory, basically, like where you come from and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Westview. Mm-hmm. It's right up the road, like 10 minutes north of Pittsburgh. Grew up in a blue collar family. My dad at the time was a substitute teacher, and then my mom was a health secretary and a part-time aerobics and fitness instructor. Mm. So pretty grassroots Pittsburgh, type family. I know you're from an Italian family yourself, so right. My mom was an Colorado.
Oh, okay,
so I got the Italian roots. Probably why me and your dad get along so well.
Definitely.
Yep. Yeah. Great guy. Love your dad. Love your family.
Thank you.
But from there, kind of, I'd say a pretty grassroots upbringing of blue collar Pittsburgh, all that good stuff. Was a big athlete, high school, 3-sport athlete, football, basketball, baseball at North Hills High School, and then went on to play football at West Virginia Wesleyan. Mm-hmm. So Division II school down like an hour south of Morgantown. Right. And it was probably the best experience or the best 5 years in my life that I'd never want to go through again.
Really?
So, yeah.
Yeah? Why? How's it going?
Oh, man. Well, it's in a little town called Buckhannon, right? Okay. So, Buckhannon's like a speck on the map. It's, if you're driving, down past Morgantown, you go about like an hour south, and then you blink, you pass it, right? Yeah. So, with that, there's pros and cons. One of the biggest blessings of that situation, and why I say it was the greatest experience that I've went through, but one that I probably wouldn't want to go through again because it's made me and who I am. Those people that you meet, from around the country, are still in my heart like family. You played, high school ball, you played college ball, right? And I wouldn't give that up for anything. Those people are near and dear to my heart, all across the world. Our kicker was from Denmark. We had a kid from Haiti on our squad, kids from Florida, California, Ohio, just all across the country. So those relationships that you build in college are ones that are never going to go away, and they're always going to be family. Right. So, but, you got a town where, due respect, love Buckhannon, but you got, the donut shop is called Donuts. The bowling alley, you're still keeping a manual scorecard. I don't even know how to count my I don't know how to count my pins. I don't know how to count my score.
Yeah, like what a spare's worth.
Yeah. 2 strikes in a row. Like, right. Is it 12? Is it 11? I have no idea. So I still don't know. But, so just an interesting experience, but I think like you believe too, one that if I wouldn't have went through it, wouldn't have made me into who I am today. Right. You couldn't have had that same experience to really make an impact in a small school in a big way. Whereas if I would have went to a bigger school like a Pitt or a Penn State or a WU, then I don't know if I could have had the same impact that I was able to at a smaller college.
Right. Yeah. Not only that, your circle of influence could have been drastically different, right? Because you're exposed to so many other. I feel like a school like West Virginia Wesleyan kind of pulls I might be wrong, more locally than out of state or such. versus like as Penn State, they're pulling from everywhere, like across the world.
Yeah.
So I feel like that circle of influence could have been different. Who knows? Could have led you down to a whole different path. Doesn't lead you here today.
Yeah.
But thankfully, you went through it all and you're here today. So that's all that matters, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a blessing, man, when you look back on it. But
yeah.
It's just crazy how we all go through life and navigate in ways that, we never could draw up ourselves. I mean, I'm a big believer in Christ and my faith and all that.
Right.
Things happen for a reason and how they're meant to happen. So that in itself and that experience, I think, was meant to happen the way it did. So just quick thing too. Things I never would have known about Wesleyan if I wouldn't have went there. But so Joe Montana, familiar with the name?
Yeah.
Joe I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know if I told you.
But did he go to Western or Wesleyan?
So Joe,
I thought it was
Notre Dame. Yeah.
I was like, I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure he went to Notre Dame.
That'd be a big spin. Yeah. But no, Joe was one of our coaches.
Really?
So,
okay.
Because Nate is a good friend of mine, is his son, and Nate came and played quarterback for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, you played quarterback? Did you play quarterback at Wesleyan?
I played until Montana got there.
Yeah.
There was but it ended up working out well. I switched to like slot and tight end, and things ended up going really well with that.
Yeah.
So, but became a captain and stuff. But yeah, Nate came, and I mean you're not beating that name Montana, starting quarterback job. So
yeah.
But anyway, so with that, then we had the name Willie Parker.
Yeah.
Willie Parker was one of our coaches. So we had Joe Montana, we had Willie Parker, who's a friend too, love Willie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, you might be too young, but you remember A-Train from the Bears?
Yes.
Anthony Thomas?
Yes.
Rookie of the year back in, I think, 02.
Okay, yeah,
right?
yeah.
He was on our squad too. So,
holy hell.
Yeah, we just it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
That,
West Virginia Wesleyan sounds like a D1 program.
It was crazy. It
was
nuts. But with that, though, and my point in bringing it up is the fact that going into that situation, you have no idea how things are going to work out and how you're going to be able to navigate through college, who you're going to meet, and then these guys come in and just really, it just gave you a different experience than I thought I was going to get when I first getting recruited to West Virginia Wesleyan.
Right.
So, and then another thing too, I'm just kind of off the top, but the guy who was the recruiting coordinator around the Pittsburgh area, his name's Luke Getzey. Luke Getzey, who recruited all of us back in like 08, 09, that era, now is, believe it or not, with the Green Bay Packers. He's the quarterback coach for the Packers, so he's Aaron Rodgers, like in. Yeah, so it just was a wild experience, and one that, if you would have told me that back when I was, 17, trying to pick what school to go to, I never would have realized. So
yeah, dude, that's very cool. That's really
crazy.
The fact that you've had so you had a Hall of Famer in Montana,
arguably the greatest football player ever.
Yeah, also to come out of Western PA.
Great old guy.
Yeah. And then you had Willie Parker, who has, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure his record still stands for the longest touchdown run in Super Bowl history. If I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
Yeah. So you had some stardom around you.
Oh yeah. Well, from these guys too, just being around them, I mean, you pick up on little traits. You pick up on mannerisms. You pick up on how these guys have. I mean, Joe Montana is arguably one of the, if not the greatest football player of all time, and just to kind of see how he carries himself around certain people and hear his advice and things like that. I mean, it's an experience that is one that's invaluable. It's nothing that money can buy. And I learned a lot from all those guys, and they make you into who you are.
Right. Yeah, and you were talking about college being kind of like you weren't really sure about what you were getting into, right? Like where this road's going to take you, and I feel like that's even more prevalent in today's society with COVID and this economical crisis that we're going through. Everything's politicized. But what have you found? Because you are a landlord, my fault. What have you found that's been like really a struggle during COVID? Either just like in terms of being a landlord or just overall.
Yeah. So to relate life into our circumstance now, so even making the decision to go to West Virginia Wesleyan, my senior year in high school, I played quarterback at North Hills, and we had a It's the second round of playoffs. Big game versus Penn Hills. We were 9-1. I mean, Penn Hills was pretty good that year. Had some phenomenal athletes. One you might know, his name's Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
so Aaron Donald, as for the audience who doesn't know who he is, he's now the two-time reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, dude trains with knives.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
It's an absolute animal.
Yeah.
It looks like he's carved himself.
Right? He's chiseled.
Yeah, he's an absolute animal. So Aaron Donald, I mean, some other phenomenal players, Dan Mason, Colin Christian. Just go down the line anyway. So with that, it was the second quarter. Ended up doing a play action left, scrambled right. Ended up getting hit from behind and had my legs taken out. My shin actually just popped and snapped. So my shin snapping was relating into like COVID and this just unknown virus that came in and just this silent killer, if you will. I never saw that coming either. And so to relate that to nowadays, that affected the colleges that were recruiting me, that affected, being in a wheelchair at my high school football, banquet, being in a wheelchair in high school. It affected the rest of my entire senior year. This happened in November of 2008.
Okay.
So with that, with COVID now coming, it's also thrown us all for a loop in the sense of no one knew this was coming. No one knew what they were going to have to go through at the end of it. So my whole goal in going through COVID and, like you said, being a landowner and some other things was realizing you're going through the moment. How are you going to do things now that you're going to look back on and remember and say, I'm proud of who I was and how I overcame adversity through that circumstance. Mm-hmm. So that prior experience in life of breaking my leg, breaking my shin, getting rushed to the hospital, being in a full leg cast and all that relates directly, I think, to COVID and being able to overcome that adversity. Yeah. So
no, there's definitely a correlation, and I think life in general, right? You're faced with obstacles all the time, right? And I think it's funny that sports, is something we both share. I grew up playing football as well and wrestling, and sports teaches you there's always obstacles thrown in your way. No play there's never a perfect play, right? There's few moments where it seems everything clicked and happened like it's supposed to. You'll get those eventually, but through the course of a football game, just in general, just like life, every play there's an obstacle, right? And it's just it's teaching you that adversity, and it's teaching you almost a patience too, right? Because not every time when you're gonna throw a pass or hand it off to your running back are they gonna score a touchdown. You know what I mean? It's you gotta work your way down the field, right? And there's checkpoints, right? A first down is a checkpoint. You know what I mean? It's you get the restart, right? You get to regather your troops, right? And then try again for another 4 downs, right? And then it's the whole sports in itself is literally just overcoming obstacles as they are thrown at you. Some in real life, during a play, a tackler's coming at your legs, you got to hurdle, you got to juke or something, or it could be pre-snap where you see the threat coming, right, and you make an audible and and avoid the threat, right? But with COVID, there was no chance to make an audible. It feels like they say it didn't really come here until March, right? In my opinion, I think it was here long before that. I think it was here already back last fall and just was under the radar. You know what I mean? Because I know friends of mine that were sick over Christmas break, that were deathly ill, and were I didn't get a chance to see them or anything. And they're, and I'm talking to them a couple weeks later, and they're telling me their symptoms, and COVID starts coming out. I'm putting 2 and 2 together. I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on here. And then it's been a whole kind of learning curve as itself as we've kind of gone along. The mask thing, it's been changing. Every day it seems like. Do I wear a mask to this place? Do I not? Some stores now are strictly their store. You have to wear a mask. It's crazy, man. But how have you been navigating kind of this uncharted territory with the experience that you've gained thus far?
Mm-hmm. So I was torn a potential tenant at one of my properties over COVID. We both had masks on. Pediatrician actually And I only had one interaction with this woman. She said something to me that really would go to kind of take me through the entire COVID situation. It was something that I kind of could hang my hat on. It was the quote I was telling you earlier about Stephen Hawking. The quote was, "Intelligence is the ability to adapt and embrace the change." So whether it's on the football field, having to, let's say you study and film all week, what that opposing team's going to run defensively, and change up their strategy, you go from a 4-3 to a 5-2, and you're like, you have to adapt on the run.
Right.
And adapting to that change and overcoming that adversity, I think, defines who we are as people. And that's why I think sports are so biased, obviously, but sports are so important in teaching us how to overcome that adversity and kind of change on a dime, if you will. So with COVID, some things that I did, so I wanted something that's a lifelong goal of mine, like bucket list type item, was to dig into the Bible end to end.
Right.
So one of the things that I did was something that's been on my. We're all so busy, we all get, or at least we think we are, until something like this hits, and then you're stuck with nothing but your own thoughts and kind of just trying to figure out what the next move's going to be. So I got in touch with my director of men's ministry, Mike Hatch, and said, "Hey, let's dig in. Like, how can I do this?" And so we started doing one-on-one Bible studies, like weekly, virtually.
Yeah. And
that was I think a big part of the foundation that I was able to get from, this adversity that came into our lives, and an aspect that I wanted to remember for years to come, of being able to invest in my faith in something that's bigger than ourselves, and have no monetary value or nothing you can bring with you from a materialistic standpoint besides internally who we are. I know you're also a Christian and big on your faith as well, from knowing your family. So that was, I think, as important as anything, and something that I'll never regret, and always kind of hang my hat on and look back.
Yeah. So what have you learned then through these Bible studies? What's kind of been, what are you looking, I guess, to get out of them? And then what have you done with I guess some of this maybe insight or information that you've gained from it? How have you taken it and enacted upon it and in your life moving forward?
Yeah. So it's amazing going to church. I grew up in my parents were Presbyterian, and we eventually ended up going to a church out in Wexford, Orchard Hill Church. It's non-denominational. And going to this church, they're very biblically driven, so they'll study different passages and things like that. And you see the passage the day of, and it resonates. Usually you can relate it to life. But I didn't realize how relatable the Bible was until I really started digging through part by part. So at first you look at this, big, gold, level book, and it's just man, this is almost overwhelming.
It's very intimidating almost.
It is.
Sometimes when I've picked up a Bible, it's almost I feel like I don't even deserve to pick it up. I mean, it's I don't deserve to read this. It's I don't know. It's a very intimidating thing. At some points in my life it has been. Other points it's been very welcoming.
I couldn't agree more. And that I was. I mean, dude, I'm 29 years old now, and I was intimidated. It's probably a good word, because I felt like I wasn't. To an extent, I wasn't good enough to go through it because I didn't know and understand it like I should. But really, it's just about taking that first step. I mean, like you did with this podcast.
Yeah.
It's such when you look back now, it's such. I came in here, it was like the Taj Mahal. Things are serious. You got your name on the wall. I mean, there's a big stoop kid, hanging out there on the flag. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But if you would have, you look at that to begin with, and it's just man, that's kind of intimidating. Can I go through that?
Yeah.
And do everything? I think it's the same thing with the Bible. But I will say, just because I'm not perfect, man, I'm a sinner saved by grace like the rest of us. And for the first Bible study, it's like being a football player and going to a meeting without your playbook.
Yeah.
I went to my first Bible study and I was frantically looking for my Bible. It was shoved away in a box or something that I moved a couple years ago.
Probably haven't seen since communion.
No. Yeah. And shamefully, I didn't have my Bible for that first Bible study, and I remember Mike Cash, the director of men's ministry. I told him, I said, listen. I said to him, this is unacceptable. I will never come to a Bible study again without having my playbook and, you know, my Bible
Right.
at my hand, because it's just, I was very critical of myself, but that was an experience I'll never forget, and something that I'll never do again by not bringing a playbook to a coach's meeting or not bringing my Bible to that Bible study.
Right.
Because how are you going to know the information without having it at your hand? So anyway, I mean, just because I'm imperfect, like the rest of us, I wanted to share that, because it wasn't all roses and rainbows like you think with you know, the concept in mind was, but it didn't end up like that.
I think that's like kind of like what like people think of like religion, right? Is like kind of like it has to be very formal, right? I feel like that's kind of like where that perception is kind of like leaned towards. It's like a very formal thing, right? Like you have your Sunday, like we always hear people say, like you got your Sunday attire, right? Wear your Sunday best, right? Where so like for me personally, like I don't really believe in like organized religion, right? Like I believe in like a higher being. I believe in God. I believe Jesus like came, died for our sins, right? But in terms of like organized religion, I'm not real into, right? Because I think praying in community is important. I do, but I think my relationship with God is between God and I, right? And the way that I develop that, I feel like it's kind of like every relationship throughout life, you handle differently, right?
Right.
Like versus like you have your relationship with your parents, like a girlfriend, your friends, right? Everything's kind of a little different in the way that you may present yourself, or the way you may talk, right? And the way what language you may use, those type of things, right? So to me, with God, it's almost somewhere similar, right? Where it's like, for me, like I don't think that I have to go to church to be a good Catholic, right? Even though that's what Catholicism preaches, like go to church every Sunday, pray community, receive the body of Christ. To me, personally, I don't think that that's required. I wouldn't say required is the right word, right? Like you don't have to go and do this. To me, I think like that should be an option, right? It's another factor in your relationship with God. But to me, like as long as I'm sitting here, right, and I'm talking to God on a daily basis, and as long as I'm living my life to the best way that I think that He, like, by adhering to these values, right, that have been instilled in me since I was born by my parents, right, as long as I'm adhering to those, right, I feel like that's what makes me a Catholic, right, is by actually living the life, rather than going, practicing it, and then coming home and being like, like, I did the practice, like, okay, I'm done for the week, right? It's almost like I did my thing for the hour, I'm good for this week, I don't have to go and do it again until next Sunday, where it's like, I feel like that's kind of where organized religion, like, put me in, right? Was that kind of like, it's just a 1 day a week thing, where when I stepped away from organized religion, I'd say probably towards the end of my, like, senior year in Central is when I started, like really, like, distancing myself from like Catholicism like as my main source of like religious inspiration, and that's honestly when I saw like my biggest growth. Like I started studying like Buddhism, which has been like pretty cool to learn about. But like I started like basically just like learning about other religions, and I'm thinking to myself like, why was I just so narrowly focused on one religion, right? Like, why was I taught like this is almost like this was the only way to live, right? Where it's like I've seen now and I've experienced like what people have come in contact with, or just by going to other churches, right? Like I went to a Baptist church over in the Hill District 2 years ago for this one class that I was in. It was a faith and reason class I had to take. And a part of it was going and visiting churches throughout Pittsburgh, like different faith groups and different, churches and stuff. And I went to this Baptist church, and like I was practically the only white person in the church. But I walked in, and I was like a little like I didn't know what to expect. You know what I mean? Like I've never been to a Baptist church before. Didn't know how the procedure went or anything. And I sat down. Well, first I walked through the door, and I was greeted immediately by like an usher, I guess is what you could call it, and just gives me a big hug. He's like, welcome, like, sir, like, welcome to our church. Like, gives me a big hug, and he's like, are you a new member? And I was like, yeah, like, I'm visiting today, and like, they give me, next thing you know, I got like this gift bag, and like, I go in, and like the pastor is like delivering the sermon, and it's just like, and there was just constant music and just like interaction with people, and it was like, wow, like this is very alive, right? And then we're like, next week I went back to like Catholic church, and I was just like sitting there in the pew, like kneeling, like getting up and down, like doing the signs. I'm just like, this is very dry.
Mm-hmm.
This is very dry.
Right.
And I think like that's why like religion has kind of like gone by the wayside now as we've like kind of progressed forward in our societies, because like it hasn't really adapted to times. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, like the biggest change in the Catholic Church, I think, that has been made since like I remember like my dad talking about it with me, is like when they transferred, like when they went from just speaking in Latin to like the native language of like the country, right? Mm-hmm. Like it used to just be all in Latin. I remember my dad would tell me stories like he's just sitting in a pew and he's like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like I'm just doing the signs because I see everybody else doing them. Right. But it's in terms of the Bible itself though, I've gone through and I've read the Bible and I've learned a lot from it. And there is a lot of good stories that you can take from it, and you can actually, it's almost like at some points in my life, I'm like, oh my God, I'm living this right now. Mm-hmm. Like what they're going through in this passage and this song is almost directly relatable to what I'm going through. Absolutely. So it's like I've kind of looked at the Bible as almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like a guide, like almost like a. Like it's almost like it's like it's had life already written out in it, right? Like kind of like the premise of life and what to expect in this journey, right? That your soul is about to go on, right? It's kind of how I've looked at it. It's like there's this overarching like kind of path of life that everybody kind of follows through, right? We all experience very similar things throughout our life period. That this book right here is to help you through those moments, right? Mm-hmm. And to take those, like, teach it, like, whatever it teaches you, take those tools and those assets to then move forward and, like, progress down this, like, road that you want to go on. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I think I didn't realize before I dug in, is the fact that it's so relatable to everyday life. And it really, when you're reading through scripture and you can relate to it, it really grabs you. It catches your attention, and it's crazy, man.
I think the best part though is honestly like when you read a scripture and you're just like, I don't know what the hell this means, mm-hmm. Or it's like I don't even know, like, have I experienced anything like this? And it's like, right. It's like it's almost like you get to that point where it's like, I don't know what to do with this information yet.
Right. But it may be.
But it may be right. But it may be important. Like who knows? Like tomorrow or years down the road, like I might have to refer back to this, specific part to learn, this, lesson over again, so then I can apply it and move forward and get past that obstacle, right? It's kind of like I don't know. I guess it's kind of like a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's like it basically like has like the answers, right?
Right.
And it's just like you just need to be smart enough to like know to look in there and to read it and to understand it, and then to bring it out into your own life, basically to execute it.
Yeah.
Almost.
And just figure out how it's applicable to real life. And something you said too about, I didn't study theology, mm-hmm. In college by any means, so I don't want to speak for any other religion. But my personal opinion is that, if you just show up for game day, in terms of, let's say you're, playing football or a sport, you show up for a game without practicing, I mean, the chances are you're probably not going to be a great player in that game because you didn't do the practice that it took to get to game day. Right. So same thing with if you just go to church and don't get anything out of it, then I also don't think, if it's not purposeful, then you know what I mean? Yeah. Why are you just going to go straight to church and then not apply it to any other aspect of your life, or not be, it's not you have to go to church, it's that you have to be the church whenever you're away from it. Yeah. So I just, that's my views on it, and I agree with you that it's not all about just having to go through that structure and just checking off the list of going to church every weekend if you're not getting something truly out of it. Right. You can't spread that light to people throughout the week, because that's the whole goal.
Right. That's the whole goal, right? Is to be messengers of God, right? Because if we're really like if we truly believe that we are all God's children, right? We're all created in His image. Then I like the first step is one. We need to get everybody to realize that, right? Like for this world to function the way that it should, that basic element needs to be established, and it needs to be preached, and it needs to be acted upon, right? Because like there's a lot of injustice, not only in our own country, but like throughout the world that's going on. And yet at the core of every religion practically is some like unifying idea behind like the human race of all being one, right? So if we actually all truly in some form or way believe that, then honestly I don't know why we're waiting to act on it, right? Like what are we afraid of? So, like why are we not there yet? Is like kind of like my question right now. Is like civilization's been here, like when you think of like the grand scheme of things, like only really like in a blink of an eye we've only really existed, but in our lifespan in terms like 100 years seems forever, and like it's all that we know, right? So it's like it's been pretty this time that we're going through with COVID and every like the Black Lives Matter movement and everything right now is like it's kind of really bringing to the forefront of what I think religion has always been teaching, is that we are all one. And it's like for the world to really unite, I guess, in my opinion, is like, that whole second coming, right? I don't think the second coming is meant for us to be saved. I think, like, truly, I think we need to save ourselves before this higher being would want to even come down and save us again. Because right now I think we're so far deep in corruption and injustice and all these things that I feel like we don't even recognize it half the time. You know what I mean? Like we're just so used to, we don't, when's the last time you like heard of like a mass shooting, like a school shooting?
Yeah.
I haven't seen one on the news. I mean, yeah, like granted we're out of school right now, but I haven't seen one on the news in probably over a year. Why? Media got tired of reporting on it. You know what I mean? It's like kind of like that wave came and went. You know what I mean? There's always waves in like the media cycle almost, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like anymore, I don't know, it just seems like we're not really being like the human beings that we're supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like we're really just tearing each other down instead of building each other up. And I think we really need to get back to some sort of the basics, right? Which is what COVID, at least for me, has done. It's like really brought my attention from all these different areas like school, work, social life, all these other facets and everything I'm doing. It really gave me a chance to like, all right, let's take a moment, stop, and let's reflect inward and like do some work on the inside. Because like you've been doing work out in the real world, all these years, but you really left yourself like kind of like peter out. You know what I mean? Like it's like a car. Like we're like a car. Like you need an oil change. Like you need to like rest. You know what I mean? You need a break from things.
Well, there's something too that I think is a great analogy for us in life. Like to your point of how we need to invest in ourselves. And when you're on an airplane and you're going through the safety precautions, and the flight attendant mentions the fact that there's oxygen masks that come down.
Yep.
She very specifically states,
put it on you first. Right?
Yeah, you have to put that oxygen mask on yourself first before you're able to breathe and save that person next to you.
Yep.
And I think that's a really good analogy for life and what we need to do in investing in yourself, and whether it's your faith, whether it's professionally, personally, like you really need to dig in and train yourself to be the person you want to be before you can impact and influence others. And that's relating directly to my faith, and why I chose to really dig into the Bible is because I really wanted to learn that so that I could invest in myself and my own faith to be able to then be the light for others. And I'm not going to be perfect, and I think that was, for anyone who's listening, that was probably my biggest mistake, is that trying to live up to being good enough to dive into the Word. The fact is, and the whole message of Christianity is that we're already good enough. We're already saved due to the blood Jesus Christ that was shed on the cross, right? Which is warrants us as good enough already. So there's nothing to live up to in terms of being good enough to to read the Bible. It's just about taking that step and really diving in.
Yeah, it's about opening yourself, right? It's about I think it's about opening yourself up to the disappointment and the self-realization that like maybe you aren't who you really are, or maybe there's areas that are just left unexplored still that you haven't even tapped into, and you don't know where you're going to end up, after you do. And I think, that's like really, like I said, been this whole like COVID journey for myself has just been, figuring out where I was, right, or what I was dealing with at this point in time, right? How can I analyze this? How can I attack this? How can I better myself, right? Not just for this moment, but then for moving forward, right? How do I make sure that I end up, like, say I want to end up here, right? And I don't want to dip back down. I don't want to like jump real high, right? I want to find that consistency, right? I feel like ourselves, like, since we are made up of energy, we're a wavelength, you know what I mean? Where it's like our mood, our emotions, our intellect, it's all one, right? We're all one in the soul. And I think like we're all constantly like a wavelength trying to just balance up and down. And, points in our life come, experiences that we have. And, sometimes, that wavelength might go real up, right? Or it may come crashing down. But it's about how do I, when I am real high or I am real low, do I have the tools and do I have the resources? Do I have the knowledge then to dig me from down here back up and be consistent again, or to bring me from here back down? And make sure that wavelength is as consistent as possible.
Right. So I think to that point, a great way to mitigate risk, I think, in that scenario, and because life is a roller coaster ride, man. As we're going through with COVID and all the changes that have come with it. But I like to use this bucket analogy. So, back in the day, this was when I was your age, probably. Yeah, I was a little bit younger, but so I was dating this girl, and from this bucket analogy, this bucket of my relationship, right, was right here, and it pours into all the other buckets that are secondary. If you put, let's say, your relationship with your girlfriend at the top of that's your top bucket,
right,
and everything else you do in life kind of stems from it, right? Then you got, on the second line in this scenario, you got your faith, you got your family, you got your friends, you got your career, you got your hobbies, your interests, sports, right? All this stuff. And that girlfriend, whether you're, like you mentioned, whether you're going through good times or bad times, like, it pours down. Things are, you guys get into a fight, it affects you being in practice. Your mind's all over the place. It affects you, with your family. You're in a bad mood at like a, holiday, whatever. So when that top bucket is something that's materialistic in terms of like in this world, worldly, and it pours in all those other buckets, it's always gonna let these other buckets be able to come crashing down with it.
You're basically pouring poison into your wells
for the lows, for the valleys of that. But what I found is that based on your analogy of being consistent, if you put that top bucket as your faith, it relates directly to what we're talking about, and you pour something, you have something up there that's more, it's not earthly, it's more than this world that you can take with you, and you pour that faith that, again, is never going to be taken from you until our very last breath. It's still not going to be taken from us. You pour that into your family, your friends, your hobbies, your interests, right? Your career, and you let that kind of just branch itself out. I mean, dude, these buckets, the secondary buckets are always going to come down, right? Because they're materialistic, they're earthly. But that top bucket, as long as it's something that's more in this world, it's never going to be able to bring down everything else, as long as that's what your foundation's built on.
Right.
So I think you can achieve more consistency with the right foundation built. It's not just about only your faith, of course, but in any aspect, whether it's professionally, whether it's personally. Like, take, for example, finances. If you, like, those highs in life, let's say you just win the lottery, right?
Yeah.
And you're a 21-year-old kid. You've never really trained yourself, unless you're a finance major for that matter, on how to manage money, and you just get handed $100 million. You're not going to know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So when that foundation's not built right, and you're winning the lottery, that's why you see, I do respect a lot of these guys that, pro athletes that have all this money, but they don't spend the time before getting the money and investing on how to manage their finances. And then next thing you know, you're reading about them being broke. I'd say I think the majority of, NFL players, let's say, end up being broke in a matter of time.
That was like Mike Webster. I remember when they found him dead, he was down by, I want to say it was Allegheny River. He was like living under a bridge in a van, like broke, like, and here he was, like a Hall of Famer, Super Bowl champion, like, and it's like, how the hell did this guy, right, who was perceived to be up here,
right,
fall from grace and end up dying in poverty? Like, it doesn't make sense. But then when you peel back the layers, right, it's like, well, he was never taught. No one ever educated him, right, on how to handle his money. He didn't know what he was doing, and that's a lot, honestly, and that's probably been my biggest issue with COVID in terms of like with these stimulus checks and everything that people have been getting. Some people are getting more money than they had even when they were working. And what's the one thing that we have not seen, or at least that I haven't seen, at least being taught, is how to manage this stimulus money. Right. I haven't seen like any government commercials or any get like something in the mail with like my check for the week that's like, hey, go on the pa.gov/stimulus resources, and here's how to work on like saving your money. Like here's learn about the rule of 72. Like all these right, like all these.
Dad taught you that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he mentioned. He's one of the first people that mentioned that to me too.
Yeah.
When I told him I had a financial advisor, he's like, "Did he tell you about the rule of 72?" I'm like, "He did." He's like, "All right, he's good in my book."
Right.
So good for you.
But like it's these things are not taught at all, and it's something that's kind of like really irked me about this whole situation is like now we're gonna get to the point now the stimulus is running out, right? It's the last weekend, I think, is the last weekend for the $600. If they don't like get something done, honestly, I think this is gonna be right here. This next period is what's gonna be the downfall, right? Is where we're gonna see our biggest collapse if something isn't done in terms of economically, right? Because you've had people who have been given money who haven't known how to use it, like how to save properly. And that's just the vast majority of America. I'm not just speaking for people like in low income like neighborhoods or anything. Like that's stemming from myself, like other college kids that are out of their part-time jobs right now, like that are I'm receiving unemployment because my job's shut down, right? Never got unemployment before. I'm receiving $7 whatever it is a week, and I'm just like,
oh, making more money than you ever.
Yeah, I'm making more money than I've ever made like during a single week before.
Right.
And I'm like, at first it was like, okay, well I need this, and this for the house, for the podcast. But then I was like, oh wait, we don't even know when the fuck this thing's gonna be over with. You need to save the money. Like you need to spend this shit wisely. Right. Or at least invest it wisely. You know what I mean? Like that's like during COVID I got into day trading and I've like learned like some fair share.
What kind of day trade?
I use Robinhood, and like I'll in the morning, like I'll come out here and I'll put on like Opening Bell. It's on YouTube, and it's just like throughout the day it's just monitoring the stocks, and I'll sit here for like probably 2 hours and like just kind of like go over my portfolio, maybe make some trades out of what I already had, or I'll look into buying like some blue chip stock today maybe, or I'll just like really sometimes I'll just pick like an industry, right? Like I've went into marijuana, like investing into cannabis, and like right now like my cannabis stocks are taking off. Like it's been doing pretty well, but like that's like the type of stuff that I've gotten into because of COVID. Was like, okay, I have all this extra money now, right? How do I utilize it? That way when COVID's over, right, and we come back to like this real world, right, what am I going to have to show for this time that I've had off? And I think that's kind of like what my mentality has been. It's almost like, yeah, we're kind of like this is like a warm up, like a practice, right? This is a scrimmage period right now almost, right? Where it's like when we do return back to real life, right? When everything's back up and running and everything, it's like, what am I gonna have to show for this? However many months this thing's gonna end up being. So there's like months of like kind of like inactivity, right? What am I gonna have to show for this, right? Right. You know what I mean? Is it just I bought some Yeezys and some new clothes and a gold chain or something. Yeah, I want like a new chain, but but that's the thing. It's like you got to make that choice, right? You got to be responsible with this money, right? You got to be responsible with the decisions you make now because they'll eventually affect where you end up later down the road.
Right. So we still have this. It's not over. I mean, this is until we find a vaccine. I mean,
no, this is our new world.
This is our new world. At least until that point where we do find that vaccine. So let's call it 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
So you're looking probably through next summer. So with that said, I mean, even in your situation and anyone else who's listening, continue to put that oxygen mask on and invest in yourself, right?
Yep.
So that when your 20-year-old self now, you look at and you're in your 30s and your 40s, you can look back and be like, man, I lived through a global pandemic.
Yeah.
And literally, I mean, in just everything that's going on in the world right now, you're going to be telling, whether your goal is to have a family and kids someday, which is my goal, I want to be able to tell that family and kids in my 30s, I'm pushing 30 in like 3 months, but in my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and look back and be, someone who can be an inspiration over this time, because this isn't going to be the last time we go through bumps in the road in life and the roller coaster, and we're at this peak, and then there's going to be, we're at a valley, and there's going to be a peak, and so it continues to go through that way.
Trials, tribulations, peaks and valleys. They're a constant theme throughout our life.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, that's like one thing I was thinking about when you were saying, like, you were picking, like, what colleges to go to and, like, how the injury, like, affected you. I was thinking also too, I was like, damn, like, you were getting ready to go to college, like, during like what they call like the second Great Depression.
Yeah.
Like the recession of 2008. Like,
right.
I mean, I'm sure that even like adds, like, even if maybe you weren't even aware of it, like that might have played a factor into even what schools like came and looked at you because of like they're like we might have to cut down on scholarships, guys. Like, we might, what I mean? Like that whole like little like blip that little valley that we all went through has like in some way it all affects us all, right? Whether it's positive or negative, every peak and valley that society goes through is going to have repercussions for the people involved in it, right? That's like one thing one thing I know that gets like shouted all over social media and like the internet right now, like during this COVID, is like how much like Jeff Bezos and like Bill Gates and all these like billionaires made during like COVID, and like how like the average person is basically like left out on their own. It's like yeah, you're right, like we kind of are, but at the same time, like you're not, because like everybody, I'm not saying everybody has an equal playing field, but what I am saying is if you want to get something done, you can get it done. It just maybe you have more obstacles to overcome than the person right next to you, right? Like if we both wanted to go and like run a marathon per se, right? I'll tell you right now, you're probably way more ahead of me.
Not after the COVID 20, but the quarantine 50.
But
you might have it.
But like, there's gonna be different obstacles in our training, right? Like I just had ACL surgery, so obviously there's gonna be something that I have to do that you're not gonna have to do to like take to bring me up to that level, right? And there's gonna be something that you're gonna have to do that I'm not gonna have to do because I might have that. It's like you gotta figure out where you lie, right, and where you want to be, and assess your current situation. Because if you don't know where you are in the moment, you're never gonna know where you're gonna end up. Like if you can't actually put yourself in the moment and take it in, and actually analyze what's going on around you, I'm sorry, you're just not gonna be able to adapt and overcome. Right? You got to be present, and if you're not present in like your life and in your moment, then in my opinion, that's the first step that you need to do to better yourself, is take control of yourself first.
Yeah.
Because if we're not, it's like, I look at the body as like almost like a vehicle, right? Your soul sits in this vehicle, right? So it's like, if you're not working on this vehicle, right? If you're not taking,
doing
the exits, the daily maintenance, right? You're not taking care of it. How are you gonna expect to deliver this passenger, right? This soul to its actual destination if you ain't taking care of what's going on right here, right now in this physical world.
Right.
You know?
It's a great point, man. I think it's a phenomenal analogy. And if you're not giving it the right gasoline.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true. Yeah, if you keep feeding it like negativity or
put diesel fuel and you need unleaded, I mean, you're screwed, man. It's not going to work right.
Right.
So it's all circumstantial too, based on the person. But Elon Musk, I mean, Tesla, right, CEO, SpaceX, all that. He says the average person works 40 hours a week, right? So you're out there, you know, we're all working hard. You know, the average person's working 40 hours a week. And his point is that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Yet, if Elon works 100 hours a week and you work 40, he's going to be able to get 2.5 times more done in a day, in a month, in a year, in a decade than you are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think it's just those elite. I mean, you look at Bezos too, and obviously richest man in the world, what he's been able to accomplish. I mean, you look at, I think back to that picture of him with the spray painted Amazon sign with the, you know, the old school Microsoft computer or whatever that was, and you think like these guys also had it wasn't roses and rainbows for these guys either. Like, they had to go through their peaks and valleys and their struggles just like anyone else.
Yeah, well, it's like every, you know, that's like I remember someone that was like, yeah, like America, man, like everything great in America comes out of a garage, it seems like. You know what I mean? It's like everybody, like a lot of people who are now successful, like did start, you know, with nothing. I mean, there's some that, you know, had like fortune to draw upon, right? Like other like, you know, expert advice or something to lend them. But in reality, like a lot of these people have done things on their own, had to overcome like their own circumstances. Like Mark Cuban, for example, like I've been watched an interview between him and Carl Bass lately on YouTube, and just like hearing the story, like Mark Cuban didn't come from much either. Like he was just like a regular, like kind of like Pittsburgh kid, you know what I mean? Like his dad was a blue collar worker. I don't know if he worked in the steel mill, but he was a blue collar worker, and like, you know, now that you look at him, like dude's a billionaire. Like, you know, he's looking to buy the O. The last I heard, and like, you know, keeping it like as it is, and you know, investing back in the community and stuff like that. But he got to that point because he realized that, you know, at one point, whether or another, that he had to focus on himself and like had to take advantage of his opportunities that were presented to him.
Right.
And and he's capitalized on every opportunity. And I think that's just like kind of
he's
motto.
Missed too, though.
He has buying the Pirates back in what was that, 2000? It was like mid 2000, I think, was when they were for sale.
Yeah.
What's the second one you're referring to?
Just in general, I mean, my point in all of these like examples of Elon. I mean, look at, you know, just lately when Elon, you know, had that Tesla truck and he had the dude take a sledgehammer, and whether it was a marketing play or not, I don't think it was.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
When he put the sledgehammer, he's like, go ahead and hit it, and showing the durability of this Tesla truck that was coming out, and it went through the window and it crashed. My point in saying that is like these guys, as successful as they're viewed and as successful as they become,
have had great failures.
Failure is the best teacher of success.
Right.
Right? And then there's another saying that complacency is the enemy of success.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And with these things, I mean, none of these guys were ever complacent. Right?
Yeah.
And if it weren't for those failures, I mean, they would never get to where they're at. You know, they're just all learning experience. So we can take those examples, even from those guys, that it may seem like it's unfair now when you look at it, you know, Bezos making $15 billion in a day or whatever, Amazon stock went up like 70% last week.
Yeah.
But they've went through their fair share of, you know, the ups and downs and peaks and valleys of life to get to where they're at too. So they're people, man. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. Is my philosophy on it. You know?
Right. It's just, what are you doing in those 24 hours, right? Are you taking advantage of it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like, I know, I was watching the one Bill Gates documentary on Netflix. I don't know if you've watched it or not, but it was like, his motto is like, you know, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like, and like the dude, like, I think they said he sleeps like 4 to 6 hours a day. And the rest of it, like, he's up, like, he's in meetings, like, he's, you know, doing a bunch of different shit now, like, you know, since he stepped down from Microsoft. And, like, dude's, like, more active now than he was when he was building Microsoft.
Right.
Like, it's actually kind of funny, but it's like I've kind of taken that same like kind of approach where it's like, yeah, like I have 24 hours today, and I need like 18 to 20 of them to get the shit done that I need to get done today.
Mm-hmm.
So if I need to, pull an all-nighter to get this shit done, like that's okay with me, right? Because I know tomorrow, then I know that I may have more time to rest because I've done what I need to do today, so that maybe tomorrow that I can take a breath.
Yeah.
Right. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And I think that's where I've kind of come also in terms of like I don't want to work a 5-day work week. I'm sure you at some point in your life don't want to work 5 days a week either.
Right.
I want to get to the point where it's like if I can be really efficient in like 3 days and have my shit done for the week. I would more than happy to sit down for like 3 days and like do everything I need to get done and have like the rest of the 4 days off kind of to like maintain, right?
Right.
So in terms of that, in terms of like building like almost like a passive income, which I know you've been doing in terms of buying properties, right? What have you noticed like getting into just like, being a landlord and everything that comes along with that, right? What have been kind of like the I guess like tips or like little things that you've learned along the way in terms of this new role of like establishing passive income? What are some of the things that you learned while like establishing that?
Yeah, so I think it relates directly to what you're talking about in terms of wanting to work smarter, not harder. And there's a book that got me really started off in real estate. It's by Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay.
It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. And in that book, there's a saying that the rich don't work for money. The rich let money work for them. So with that said, that's a way that I saw as an avenue of diversification in my own portfolio to not be necessarily working for money, but letting that money work for you.
Right.
So, and what that means is that I live in my first property buy was a 3-unit, it was a triplex.
Okay.
And there's 2 tenants that live there, right? And so there's a 3-bedroom, it's attached to another 3-bedroom, and then there's a 1-bedroom, so 3 separate units. Okay. I live in one of the 3 bedrooms, and then there's a tenant in the 1 3-bedroom and one bedroom. And from just that analogy in itself, the goal would be to have those tenants paying off your mortgage. Okay. So in that analogy, let's say you do have the tenants that pay off the mortgage. I mean, if that mortgage is paid off, it's not only saving you, the money that you would be paying in rent, let's say, a month, but it's also an appreciating asset that money is going to your principal, which is building equity,
right,
as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
Hey, what's up? How are you? Remember him, big dude. Right?
Big dude.
But so with that said, it's also appreciated over time too. So let's say inflation's at 3%, your property value is also growing 3%. So that money is not only rents that you're taking in and money that is going into your pocket, it's actually building an asset that's appreciating for you at the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's almost like you're really. So right now, like, would you say you're like basically living for free? Is that was that what was like the initial goal? Was it to like just live for free, or was it to get to the point where it is like increasing your income, and is that why you're like diversifying and like getting other properties?
Mm-hmm. So I think the initial goal was, after reading that book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and some other ones, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill's another great one to start out with. But that was me putting my oxygen mask on, right, and trying to invest in myself before I could then invest in real estate. But it's still trial by fire. So there's so many things I've learned since buying my first property a couple of years ago. But what was the initial question again? What was my goal?
What was like your goal, like getting into it? Was it just to live for free, or was the intent to eventually build it so that like maybe you could give up your job as like a pharmaceutical sales rep? It's like, what was your goal like starting out?
Yeah, so it was to live for free, which then would save me rent. So I was renting for a couple years myself, but my other goal was I wanted to get 10 units going. Okay. Right? So I'm in the process of that now. But with that said, you can actually have the revenue that you have coming in from real estate to be able to supplement your bills. Let's say your bills are, in college they were different than they are now for me, but let's say $1,000 a month, right? $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year. If you can gain just $2,000 a month in cash flow on top of your, just basic example. Let's say your mortgage is $1,500, and you have 3 rents coming in that are $1,000 each, and then your money you have coming in is $3,000. You're making $1,500 a month, which ends up being $18,000 a year. You could use that essentially to pay off all your bills, and not have to depend on working a job to then, get paid an income. Like for this example in COVID, right? Like, some of these, the unemployment rate was at what, 15, 18%.
It's up there. It's really up there.
So with that, you can leverage yourself and try to mitigate your risk. I mean, you can never help the circumstance or what's going on, but that was my goal, was to diversify my portfolio and mitigate my risk so that if I needed a fallback and had to pay my bills every month, I could have them paid and not have to depend on my job. Even though I love my job, I love what I do. I'm very fortunate to have the position. I love medical sales and all that, but it could supplement my income, pay off my bills, and then your job becomes bonus.
Yeah, so it's basically like, the income that you're receiving from these rental properties is almost like it's paying off like those essential purchases, right, that you have to make like every month, like a car payment, like electrical bill, like stuff like that, right? Where it seems like it's getting to the point now where you're going to be able to use like the money that you're accumulating from like your job to basically pursue and like keep growing this passive income, but also like to use it like to treat yourself, right? To like do things that you want to do. Because like obviously like I'm sure you want to go on like vacations and like travel the world. Like there's certain things that you want to do that obviously like require money. So it's like it's almost like you're getting to the point now where it's like your job is almost just like there so that you can treat yourself. It's like not really. It's like almost like it's like getting to the point where it's like I don't really need it. Mm-hmm. But like I like what I'm doing. It's giving me like more room to like go and do things. So it's like it's almost like an option. Like at some point it's gonna become right for you. Is that like what you're hoping for? Is that job like almost can become like an option where it's like like really don't need to do this full time. Like I could like maybe get something part time and spend more of my days like working on like maybe going like putting like I don't know painting your one bedroom apartment or something. Doing work on rental properties or something.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's necessarily that. I think it's more so having the ability and the freedom to really do what you love. And right now I'm really fortunate in the sense that I love my job. So it wouldn't have to do with that. It would be getting the freedom to be able to not stress about living paycheck to paycheck, let's say. Because the majority of Americans, there's a fact that 60% of Americans can't afford a $400 payment, like an emergency payment, right? Yeah. So my goal, I guess, it roots from really my foundation in terms of growing up with, not coming from much, I love my parents to death, and I'm so thankful for how I was raised at my core and the foundation. But it's not like we had that free money to go and take the vacation or to travel the world, or whatever it may be that you're looking to do. So my goal would be to be able to build that life for my family someday, to be able to have that freedom to choose, what you want to do, kind of when you want to do it to an extent, right? And to do something that makes you happy, not just work a job to work a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just not the punch in, punch out, collect a paycheck.
Right. And that's not what I'm doing now, which is why I would never, I'd still want to do this.
So you basically, it seems like you don't want to be a weekend warrior.
What do you mean?
Like somebody that only basically gets to live their life on the weekend. You want to be able to live your life each and every day. Almost.
Yeah, dude, the grind never stops. In terms of, if I gotta, this morning, like I was telling you before I came over here, I'm doing tenant tours for a property, a vacancy that needs filled. Right. So I don't really working a 9 to 5. Dude, I'll work whenever. I'll work all weekend. but my hours may not be 9 to 5 on a weekday. It may be 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Some days it may be, you start off with breakfast with a physician, a meeting at 6:30, 7:30 in the morning, go through meetings all throughout the day, because I'm, in pharmaceutical sales, you're going from office to office, meeting with physicians and nurses and office staff, right, promoting your product to help better patients. And you may have a dinner then after work for business that's at 6 p.m. So you go from 4:30, 5 o'clock, and your last meeting, go right into a dinner at 6:30 p.m. You're there till 9:30, 10 p.m. building rapport and building relationships, right? Right. These physicians. I mean, so that day is literally, I've done it plenty of times, 6:30 to 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, So it's not, I'm not someone though that, I don't work a typical 9 to 5, and that's just not who I want to be and what I want. I don't want to be constrained by a 9 to 5. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. In that sense. And I think with our culture, that's the perception right now, culturally, like we talked about in social media, no one wants to work a 9 to 5, but who's willing to do the work to create the lifestyle where they don't have to work that 9 to 5? Yeah. Right? And that's the perception that is such a problem in our society, is everyone wants that perception of this, beautiful lifestyle and being out on a boat, being on vacations. No one wants to put in the work. And that's very truthful.
Absolutely. And social media has made it a lot easier to fake yourself and put up that fake facade that it's like, I'm just spending my days out on the boat, or, I'm traveling here, I'm traveling there, or whatever. But in reality, no one knows what the fuck's going on behind the scenes. Right. Who knows? You might have taken a loan out to go on that trip to Europe. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know what you're really doing behind the camera, but what I do know is the fact that, I want to get to that point, right? I want to do those things that you're doing, but I want to do them the way I want to do them. I want to make sure that, my financial, success is, stabilized, and it has, a good, consistency to it, right? And to then get to the point where I can afford to live that sort of lifestyle, right? But like you said, people, like you said earlier, Rem wasn't built overnight, right? It took years, took generations to build an empire, right? It takes time, and I think, that's one thing that people in our generation are kind of battling with, is we're so used to that instant gratification that comes with a lot of the activities that we now partake in, that when we don't get it, it seems odd. It seems like we aren't doing something, we're not doing something right. You know what I mean? It's I put out this episode. I don't understand why it's not getting 10,000 streams on YouTube in an hour or something. You know what I mean? It's I don't understand. And then it's well, then what am I doing wrong? It's no, you might not be doing something wrong. It's just it may take some time for people to understand what you're doing, what you're trying to do. All these. There's so many factors and everything that I think a lot of people have just. It's if it doesn't, you post it, it doesn't happen, and it happens.
Yeah. So through traveling, and one of the reasons why I like traveling so much is the fact that you learn about different cultures, and you get exposed to different people, right? From all different generations and upbringings. And from that, traveling to specifically places like LA, places like Miami, right? Places like Vegas, those places, to your point, these people, in a lot of scenarios, will take out a loan to lease, a Ferrari or a Lambo or a Rolls Royce, just to live up to that perception of having to live up to the Joneses, if you will. You know what I mean? Yeah. They want the perception, the success affiliated with it, but they may not. It's again, they're not. Due respect to anyone who's leased a car. I used to lease a car myself, but at the same time, they're doing that for the perception of wanting to be viewed as successful, and that immediate gratification of, look at me, I'm successful. You know what I mean? I want that perception.
But why? I guess my question is, while we're talking about it, is why is success always related to material?
I think again, it comes back to culture, right? So if I posted on my social media, the early mornings, the late nights, doing a real estate spreadsheet at 1 o'clock in the morning, or doing a document for work that's due the next morning, and you're up till 2:30 in the morning just because you haven't had the time of the day. If I posted that on social media, would it gain as much traction as a picture of me in the Bahamas or me in front of a Lamborghini? You know what I mean? It's not flashy.
Right.
So point being is hard work isn't necessarily sexy. It's not something that that and immediate gratification are like opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So I think culturally, we're confused.
Yeah, it's like it's like almost like at some points, like we appreciate the backstory and we appreciate the grind, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when it's like if it's a story we can relate to, you know what I mean? But then at the other end, when it comes to our own life, it's like we don't notice that we are in the grind. Like we don't know to appreciate the moments that we're in. It's like I said, we're always just like, "Bam, I need it now. I need this now." And if I don't have it now, then I guess it's not attainable. Then, right? It's like if it doesn't happen now, it's never going to happen. It's almost like that mentality that I feel like we're kind of like falling into with this, with the greater influence that social media plays into our lives is like kind of that road that I see is like kind of heading down. And I think we kind of need to like social media is a great tool. Don't get me wrong. Like obviously we both use it.
Used right.
Right. Obviously, we both use it for for our businesses and for our social lives in general. But and it's just like any other great invention, right? There's pros, there's cons. Just like dynamite was used to carve tunnels that we now have for interstate and stuff like that. It's also used to kill hundreds of thousands of people too during war and stuff like that. So it's like it's kind of like the same thing with social media. Do we want to use it for the betterment of society, right? Which is kind of like to connect us all, right? To make it more globalized, right? So we can kind of be more inclusive and like learn more about other cultures and different places in the world. Or do we want it just to be able to be like, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but like it's just like almost like it's like either it's a fake facade, like you're trying to build yourself up to where you really aren't, but you want people to believe you are, versus like I need to use this for business. I need to use this just to put my message out there, just so people know that this is here.
Yeah,
it's like almost like there's no like kind of like in between anymore. And I feel like that's kind of where we've gone, even like politically nowadays. Like not to get too much into politics, but it's like it seems like anymore there's no room to be in the middle in kind of like any conversation in life. It's like either you're pro this or pro that, and there's nothing in the middle. Like nobody can like just sit down and like extend their hand across the aisle. And I think a lot of that unfortunately has to be blamed on social media, because I feel like that's really been the platform that's been our biggest unifier and our greatest divider in terms of this society that we live in right now.
Yeah. And to bring it back for a hot second to what you were mentioning about just being our true selves and why do you want to put on a facade? We're the same in terms of us being real, and I don't want to be someone I'm not,
right?
Because I wouldn't be proud of that person at the end of the day.
You wouldn't be you.
No, it wouldn't be me. But there's someone I recommended to you, Gary Vaynerchuk, on social media. His Instagram is Gary VEE, and then he has a podcast, the Gary V Audio Experience. That he is so big on, and that's another person I've listened to over the years to really put that oxygen mask on. He's so big on just being his true self, because how hard is it to be someone that you're actually not and to live up to that? Yeah. So the more you create that facade of someone that you're not, the more pressure is on you to live that lifestyle, to live up to that, and to do. Let's say you're taking out a loan to do this, crazy vacation in Turks and Caicos. Then you need to do something else the next time. Or you're driving in a Lambo and you gotta, whatever. You're renting for a few days and take some pictures. You got to get a Ferrari the next time too. You know what I mean? So like, being not your true self is so hard that his point is like, why would you be someone that you're not? Like, I can just be me and be myself.
I feel like people don't realize that it's almost like you put in like twice the amount of work to be fake and to build that facade, right? Than it actually takes to just be yourself.
Absolutely.
But I feel like I think a lot of it's just because people aren't comfortable with themselves sometimes, and it's like, you know, in this world that we live in, you know, there's so many like stigmas and there's so many stereotypes, and it's like, hey, you gotta like to be a man, you gotta live like this. You know what I mean? It's like you don't, you don't.
Right.
There's no one knows what the fuck defines a man. Like it's whatever you think defines a man is a man, right? There's no. You don't have to like. Not everything's black and white.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the thing that's kind of gets lost, right? Is that like you don't have to necessarily live by these set standards, right? To be this set person,
right? If
you just be you and you just, like I said, engage in the moment, because it's cool to plan, you know, for the future, and you know, 5 years down the road, you want to have this done and that done. Like we all have goals, short term, long term. And it's good to have them because it's something to drive forward, right? It's something to keep you motivated on a daily basis. But at the same time, I mean, just kind of like this interview right now, right? This wasn't planned. I didn't know that this conversation was going to lead this way. That's just where life has taken it. So it's like, are you quick enough to adapt on your feet, right? To overcome whatever situation is presented to you.
Right.
And are you acting authentically with that? Right? Are you acting upon that situation because it's truly the way you want to act upon it? Or are you acting upon it because like of this fake facade you build on social media, or because of, you know, this is what your parents want you to do, or a friend, or you know, such and such, these outside forces, right, that are, you know, always existed in our lives? Are we acting because we want to act upon for those outside forces, right, to gratify and to, you know, pleasure those outside forces, or are we really here to pleasure ourselves and and to really lift ourselves up to this place that we're supposed to be by the end of our lifetime, right? Because you know, life's a journey, right? And it's whatever is at the end of that journey, right? You have to be comfortable. Like you have to be accepting of whatever is going to be your legacy, right? And you gotta be comfortable knowing that like I lived each day in the moment. I made the decisions that I made because they were what I wanted in those moments.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like, you know, you can't go back and like say, like, you know, people are like, you know, if I could redo life, I wouldn't have dated, you know, this person, or I wouldn't have done this or that. It's like,
right.
Yeah, but like those things where you may not think it, that girlfriend that like you had freshman year of high school that was like the worst, right? You think it's the worst thing you ever did in your life.
Yeah.
That was probably a crucial moment for you, because there's something that you probably learned in that relationship that then like affected you in terms of like picking your spouse for the next one. Right?
Well, I told you about that, you know, my ex that I dated in college, and how I put her above everything else, and it taught me that if I put something that was earthly and materialistic, right, then it couldn't flow into the rest of these buckets,
right?
Because everything else would come crashing down. The relationship came crashing down. So to that extent, though, in what you're talking about, authenticity and really doing what you want to do in life, the last topic I know I wanted to cover was small businesses.
Yeah.
And how these guys, that's another thing I've learned from COVID is anytime, you know, you're going to eat with your friends, you're going to grab a beer, like whatever it is, being cognizant of these small businesses that have put their heart and soul into their craft, and they love it. You have to love it, right?
Yeah.
They're depending on, you know, they're invested in themselves so much to the extent that like it's building a living for themselves, right? So, like there's a guy I know, he's the owner of Sinful Sweets, right?
Okay. Yeah.
He does like phenomenal. You look at the dude, he's a tremendous guy. He's supported me in more ways than I can count over the years, and always the first one to jump on something like, hey, how can I help you? Or like, you know, something happens good for you, get some recognition. He's always like the first one to congratulate you. And this dude's ex-military, you know, tattoos, like 2 full sleeves, like big, intimidating looking dude. He cooks, well, he bakes brownies, and you know, he does like edible cookie dough, and like some really cool chocolates and everything. He's a store right down Liberty Avenue, right downtown. And I mean, this dude has made this his craft. He's in there baking it, literally, like, you know, whether it's 4, 5, 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
And, you know, you see him at 9 or 10 o'clock and you're still rubbing your eyes. My man's been baking for 4 or 5 hours and he's crushing it.
Right.
And he's just one example of these business owners who you go in and spend money with him, and it means so much more to him than you know what I mean, than some of these bigger corporations. That you're never going to get that personalized thank you or that personalized appreciation. So
and it's cool to see because they're working and they're building their own dream. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that's kind of like one thing, like kind of reflecting back on the passive income is like, I don't want to build anybody else's dream. I don't want to be a cog for somebody else's dream, right? Manifesting their own destiny, right?
Right.
I have a destiny and I have a dream, right? We all have dreams and destinies that we want to pursue, but it's like, I feel like a lot of people just don't have the courage, honestly, is to like kind of, or like the faith in themselves, right? The belief in themselves, or maybe like they're lacking that from their partner or somebody that they depend on, right? To like kind of like give them that push, right? Is like, I think this world, right, would be a lot better of a place if people were to, use that like 9-to-5 job as almost, instead of being there dependent on it, almost as like a tool to build whatever they really want to build, right?
So can I hop in and tell you a story about exactly that?
Yes, please.
So there's another dude, another small business owner. Again, man, world of respect for all these guys. And he, believe it or not, my man has been a bread man for nickels. Okay, so basically he drives a bread truck. He starts at like literally, the dude starts at like 4 a.m. and he's done by 12 p.m. Okay. But not a lot of people know that he's this bread man in the mornings, and this is his 9-to-5. Yeah. It's gotten him the ability to then be able to fund his own business. Okay. He also owns Hometown 202 Tacos. He's got some real estate properties, all that, just by the boat. Right? But he started and is still a bread man from 4 a.m. to 12 p.m. driving his nickels truck around the city of Pittsburgh. Full out, born and raised in Morningside, full Yinzer, all that stuff. But he used that to be able to then live that life that he wanted to live by then purchasing and funding a business, purchasing and funding properties. Yeah. And right, like the whole point of our conversation is like Dave is that dude who has used his 9-to-5 to be able to fund the life that he's wanted to live for himself. Yeah. So I got the world of respect for people like that, him and so many others, and it just. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, but Dave chooses to wake up at 3:30 in the morning and grind and make his money from 4 to 12 and then shows up at his taco shop and, everyone thinks he's just rolling out of bed. My man's put in
all right, 8 hours.
So it's just stories like that and so many others that really inspire me and hopefully inspire a lot of your listeners to, be able to do the things that you want to do in life, because life is so short. We only have one, So if you're not happy and you're not your genuine, true self, then what is life? What are you trying to get out of this? Yeah. And I've always respected and appreciated you, your family, your father. Who's so important and has been so influential in my life. It could, if I really think about it, it could bring me to tears how he brought me under his wing. And just taught me about life, man. I didn't know that much. I was business illiterate out of college, I always say. And Frank's just kind of, your dad, Mr. Bernice, really brought me just through the ranks, man, and taught me so much about life. And I know he's invested that in you. So I've always respected you and your family for you guys being as genuine and true to yourself as anyone I know. And that's why I took this interview. That's why I'm here for you whenever.
Appreciate that.
I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I thank you for stopping by the stoop today, man. Please give yourself a shout out. That way people know where to find you, keep up with everything that you're doing in life. Also, kids, people are out there looking for the apartments right now. You know what I mean?
I got a 1-bedroom. Tell you what, beautiful, nice, cozy home. Yeah. Right off Duncan Avenue, right by Belisario's, little Italian restaurant down the street. Yeah. Oh, you know what's that? Yeah. Yeah. Get some stock peppers, nice pie, a little pasta, rigatoni, whatever you need. But if anyone's interested, 1-bedroom McCandless that's open right now, but it's got some looks quickly. But
We're the Legends of the Stoop. We're here to advocate, educate, and inspire society. Coming at you live from the South Side. Make sure to tune into our website at www.legendsofthestoop.com. Use the hashtag on all social platforms. Hashtag Stoop Legends. We the Legends of the Stoop. Coming at you live. Right here in Southside. www.legendsofthestoop.com.